you haven't met him yet, he's a wonderful guy. He's given us a few talks before, and then on guests before. But today, just be prepared for a good time. And you can see his topic. Before we begin, let us open up for prayer. You guys can stand up to begin. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we ask you to come in here and give us wisdom, give us a good talk through your servant, Ben, that he may teach us and open our minds, open our hearts, that we may listen to his words, that you may use him as an instrument of your word. And please, I ask that you open our minds and our hearts to the words he's going to be telling us. And in your name we pray. Our Father, who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
All right, guys, so for those of you who don't know us, I'm Ben Sharp. This is my wife, Robin. We are parishioners here at St. Andrews for almost 5 years now. So we've really grown to love the community. Really, we're here to serve you guys, the students. Was really blessed and really lucky. You guys actually helped vote me onto the pastoral council. So I'm part of the church leadership here. Really appreciated that. That was a really nice gesture. And but today we're here. We're going to talk about marriage, Catholic marriage, and family life in today's society. So it's a familial love. Marianne had asked us to talk about really children, our post-marriage life. The first two talks that we gave. The first talk that we gave was on chastity in marriage. Really chastity when you're dating, during courtship, and pre-marriage life. The second talk we gave was really modeling the family on the Holy Family after you're married. And today's talk is going to be on this, really just about raising children, being open to life, and kind of our experiences. This isn't a lecture, so please, if I feel like I'm lecturing, you guys can just throw a water bottle at me or something. It's okay. This is really just our testimony to you guys. So we're here to just share that, our goal, our vocation, we're called to do. For me and Robin, especially, our vocation was to be here, be married, and have a family, to help bring other life into the world, to share in God's creative goodness, and then, of course, try to raise the best children that we could to bring them to heaven, to help lead them to heaven. So, do you have anything you want to add to this? Okay, so she may end up sitting down because she's, she's a little nervous. I don't get too nervous, but I'm going to keep my notes. We'll see how much I refer to them. I should try to refer to them more, but it's hard without a stand. So basically, we're going to go through just the four kind of stages of what I want to talk about that we've experienced so far. So our season in life, we're married. We've been married for 14 years. We were together for 5 years before that, believe it or not. We were engaged for much of that time, figuring out our faith, making sure that we were in line with each other and how we're going to raise our children. And this was very critical. We're going to talk about the early life of our marriage after we got married. Basically, as our children grow older, so you'll progress with me through that, kind of the progression of our children, up to our 14 years so far. And then if you guys have any questions, I guess you can ask at the end or whatever. The first thing is I want to talk about basically how Catholicism, how the Catechism defines the family, right? The Catechism talks about the family as a domestic church. It's the first time that children are introduced to the faith. So we as parents, we have the obligation. God asked us, he said, I'm going to trust you with these children. I'm going to give you the obligation to bring these children to me. And how do we do that? How do we raise holy children? How do we raise good people? We're going to be the first ones that help teach them the truth. And because of that, they label the domestic church, or they label the family the domestic church. It's a microcosm of the church. The father is the head of that church, and the mother is the cherished spouse. So think of, the father is our father, the mother is the bride of Christ, the church, equal before God in dignity, and treating each other equally in charity. And our goal is to bring up children to know, love, and serve the Lord. And that credit to Deacon Ernie. I think it's an old, I could not find an actual source other than Deacon Ernie for that. So our first topic is the openness to life, right? So when you agree to be married in the Catholic Church, you are agreeing. Oh, Brendan, you're my hero. Perfect. Thank you so much, Brendan. All right. So when you agree to be married to your spouse, in order to share the true experience of God's intimate love between husband and wife as a reflection of Trinitarian love, right? We agree to be open to life. So that means we're not going to prevent children through any intimate acts. So basically, no artificial contraception. Let's just be clear. That's the one main supreme dogma in our marriage, in the intimate life of a marriage, is that you need to be open to life. The church teaches a beautiful practice called natural family planning, which allows us to avoid that, but to help space children based on natural methods in order to avoid grave circumstances that can be a harm to your family. So that's a whole other lecture for a whole other time, but I do want to touch on it as we talk about openness to life. So in Genesis, right, God said to Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply, right? He said, go out and populate the earth. As husband and wife, we are obligated to, if God blesses us, in order to be blessed with children and share in his creative goodness. In Matthew chapter 19, right, Christ told the apostles when they were rebuking the children, let the children through, let them come to me. He said, the kingdom of heaven belongs to those such as these. Over and over, he reinforces the idea of family and the blessedness that is procreation. Now that is not, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, but in human reality here on earth, after you get married, there are many, many struggles and joys in child raising. Some of the early struggles, right? You don't really experience till after you get married. Everybody tells you, well, I'm going to be ready to be married. I have to get ready to have children. We'll get married, but we'll wait for children. We have to be financially ready. How do I know I'm mature enough to have children? Well, I'm here to tell you, nobody is ever ready financially. Nobody is ever ready maturity-wise. I was the oldest son, the oldest child of 17 children. I've changed more diapers in my life than this entire room combined. I'm willing to bet. Maybe not my wife. But I thought I was ready to be a dad, right? God instilled in me this natural ability to lead or to be a father. I was not ready. It's the hardest thing that we've done as a couple, as a person. It is the hardest thing I've ever done, and also our greatest achievement. Children, they rob you of sleep. They cost a ton of money. They beat on each other. They try your patience. You have to feed them. You have to clothe them. And nobody ever warned you that when they wake up in the middle of the night and they're yours, you're the person who has to get up and deal when they cry or they get sick. You have to rock them to sleep. And then the next morning, when they wake up at 6 in the morning because they want to play, you still have to get up even though it's Saturday and you've worked 60 hours this week. So the early part of childbearing, especially when you're just married, that first kid that comes into your life, it can be pretty daunting and pretty difficult. It's also the most amazing thing you'll ever do. I've never cried, other than the day I got married, than the day of the birth of my children. like rivers, just here's this human being that is half of me and half of her, that carries her bloodline, that carries my bloodline. You know, it's just overwhelming. Here's another soul that God blessed us with. That being said, we had 4 and 5 years. 4 children in the first 5 years of our marriage. During that time, it's what we like to call the tunnel of darkness. Having multiple toddlers during a small amount of time leads you to extreme sleep deprivation. Your entire life is changing diapers, dressing children, feeding children, dealing with babies crying. We lived in Michigan. We have a whole other wardrobe. You guys don't even know what it's like to have winter clothes, to make sure your kids have their warm going outside. That early part is pretty daunting. But God gives you the grace. God carries you through. You might not remember most of those days. You might be tired. You might be miserable. You might fight with your spouse over stupid things. Who's going to change the diaper? Who's going to get the baby ready so we're not late to mass? But once you make it through those 4 to 5 years, or I guess you could have, like my parents, they had, 8 kids in 10 years, so I don't know if they've ever emerged from the tunnel of darkness. but once you emerge, right, once God carries you through, and He does carry you through, you start to notice things. Your kids start to brush their teeth. Your kids start to get on their own shoes. They teach each other how to tie their shoes. They get dressed by themselves. I'll tell you that one of the greatest days, and you can ask Robin, she can attest to it, is when our oldest knew how to shower by herself. That was like, you could hear the angels singing that day. All of a sudden, one was, on the road to self-sufficiency. The early years, although they can weigh on us, they really taught us this. They kind of fortified our trust in each other, really helped build this bond, really made us against the world, and really strengthened Robin and my life together, but also the bond with those children. They grew to trust us and love us, and that unconditional love, the beauty of your own children, is really, it's above words. So that leads us to kind of our going into our present days. We have our children. We have 5 children. Our firstborn is Mary. She's 12. Our second child is 11. It's Johanna. Our third child is Emily. So we started with 3 girls. The fourth child, Emily, is 9. Benjamin Jr. I did have a junior. It wasn't really my intention to have a junior. It just kind of worked out that way. But we did have a boy. He's 8, with 4 mothers at home. And the last one, Anne Marie, she is actually 3 years old. So we have a little baby. So if you guys ever see us at church, you'll see the little baby out here yelling at everybody, inside jumping all over us, singing when everybody's quiet, yelling when everybody's singing. That's our 3-year-old. Now, as the older ones have progressed, we actually had to make the decision on where to send them to school, right? So here we are, we have these children, we emerge from the tunnel of darkness, they're becoming self-sufficient. We have to worry now more about how are we going to educate them. So there's many different paths, right? There's public schools, there's homeschool, Catholic schools, charter schools, all these different choices. For our family, the right decision for us so far has been Catholic school. So we've been really blessed to sacrifice, to make every effort we could to send our children to Catholic school. I am a product of a Catholic school education myself, and I value it very highly, not only for the academic standards, but also for the faith formation. So, as they get older, though, we are faced with different challenges. Some of the biggest challenges we have, right, are today's modern culture. Us against the family, right? Today's world is an attack an attack on traditional family, attack on traditional family values, and an attack on Christianity. We actually are obligated not only to raise our children and help them be physically healthy, right? Get sleep, eat healthy, play outside, take your vitamins, go to the doctor, all these things. But we're responsible to help them spiritually. So in our house, we really are hard on protecting them. They do not have a cell phone. We limit their television, we limit their electronics. It can be a battle sometimes, but we feel that obligation to kind of help protect them from the world. On the flip side, we definitely enjoy the other side of it. Being able to go hiking, being able to take your family out, even out to dinner sometimes, and getting out with the family, bringing family to Sunday Mass, being able to come to the events we have here, right? Los Posadas for Christmas, right? I think my children were running around outside and just begging for a hot chocolate the whole time, but it was very nice for me and my wife. Part of the key when you do have your own family, for us, has been to develop good practices in the home. The importance of daily family prayer. I can't stress to you guys enough. Once you get married, to start your prayer life with your spouse, to pray every day together, if that's your calling, and really with your children, to start developing a daily prayer life. Whether it be just nightly prayers before bed, whether you can do morning, nightly prayers, the Angelus at noon, however you guys can do it, developing that family prayer is important. We don't, in reality, and many of you I'm sure have had pets in your life, right? Has anybody had a dog or a cat, pet? We make sure that we feed our animals, right? Like it's kind of essential. We clean them, we feed them, if they get sick, we take them to the vet. It's a microcosm of having children, right? We do what's best for the pet in order to grow and to learn, to be healthy so that we can enjoy it and it can be our companion. Our children, it's never wrong to somewhat force or introduce our faith on them. It's okay if your children are grumpy and yelling at you because they don't want to pray. It's okay to say, you know what? You're going to pray with us. You're going to eat dinner with us. We are going to have this time together as a family. That's what's best for them. So if I'm going to help raise them and provide for them corporally, making sure they can eat and be okay, I'm also going to do what's best for them and introduce them to the faith. It is my job. It's the head of our house. The hardest thing that we do, that we endure now, especially with our daughter becoming a teenager, mom. That's my favorite. When your kid looks at you and says, "Have a nice life," I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I have a nice life. So have I achieved your goal, man? Like, I don't know. We love our children. We're kind. We interact. But we're not their friends. So many times you see like, one of the worst, right? Mean Girls. Has everybody seen the movie Mean Girls? Yeah? I hate to bring up Mean Girls in my talk at the church, but that movie cracks me up, okay? The mother in that movie, right, Amy Poehler, she's trying desperately to be Regina George's friend, right? Just desperately. She's doing whatever she wants. You guys need margaritas at 15. So we fight that battle every day. When our kids want to stay up late, when they want a cell phone, when they want to, maybe go out and do things that they're not supposed to do or they're not ready to do, it's our job to not be their friend at that time. We're not Amy Poehler. Our kids I have one job, get those kids to heaven. So remembering to be strong in that. We definitely believe in positive reinforcement, but discipline is also key. For us, we've made mistakes in discipline, right? We've overreacted. We've been exhausted. We've punished our children too harshly. What did you say in the car on the way over here? I can't remember. It was so great. But it was in regards to that, right? You support your spouse. If we make a mistake, our spouse comes before our children. If you do not take and back your spouse up before your children, you are bound to fail. Your children come after your spouse. My first obligation is to get her to heaven. So, occasionally, because we're human, we might make a mistake. My kid, she'll get into something or she'll write on the wall and we freak out. We've had a hard day, we're tired, we're stressed, and we freak out. She wrote on the wall, oh my goodness, you're grounded for 2 weeks. What the heck? Who does that? Well, human beings do. And you back each other up, no matter what, you follow through, but then, after the kids go to bed, you can sit and talk about it, and you can figure out ways to get out of your own punishment for your children. It's a practice. I think many families have done this. But in the face of your children, you always protect your spouse. It's always about them. One caveat is as long as it's not abusive or immoral, right? Let's be clear. So these things that we try to do, right? We're trying to raise children to get them to heaven. We want them to be productive members of society. We want them to be you guys. We want them to be here at church, learning about their faith, growing into productive adults, being educated, getting ready to enter into marriages at some point in your life, or religious life, or secular laity, whatever God's calling you to do. Part of that, and our biggest challenge, is building good habits, building good exercises in your children. We work very hard at establishing the prayer life. Like I said, daily prayer is a good, is the very first thing that you're going to do. Introduce your children to the sacraments. Help them to grow in virtue. Service to others. Making your children serve others is a good step, right? Our goal as Catholics is to die to ourselves, to follow Christ's example so that we can make it to heaven. And to truly die to yourself, these are the steps that we can take, right? So our children, as we introduce them to be productive members, we also want them to learn to serve others. So coming to a student event, right? Offering to help clean up. Offering to help clean the house without being asked. Offering to help a neighbor rake their yard. These things that we encourage our children to do help them to grow in virtue, help them to, lead them in the direction that we're looking to go. One of the best things that we've done is get our children involved in sports, right? I'm sure a lot of you have played sports in school and may still play sports. I don't know. Does anybody here still play a sport at school? Yeah.
That's cool.
Just for fun? It's okay. Sports are great. Team sports, they help build that camaraderie, right? Not only team sports, but school activities in general, right? We can not only build camaraderie and respect for others, learn how to work well with other personalities, but we also learn that kind of sense of accountability, right? I'm part of a team. I'm going to do my best so that team can succeed. Whether it's in a play, whether it's serving dinner at a church event. But the best place, at least where I learned it, I played almost every sport. I want to say soccer, basketball, hockey, football, baseball, and golf. So all the sports that were somewhat available in our area. And everything I got from it was just, that sense of brotherhood, of team building. And that's one of the things that we do to really help instill strength in our children. One other, another big thing that's in our household is the protection of our children in society. So just more of like your normal setting, right? Some friend invited them over from school. They want to hang out. They want to get to know that friend. How do we vet those friends, right? We have to make sure that we're vetting the people that our children are seeing as best as we can. We, as a rule in our household, we don't do sleepovers. I think that's for anybody. It's when you have your own children, you can make that determination. I just know that when I was growing up, sleepovers never led to anything good. More mischief than anything. They always find the set of parents that go to bed early so that they can sneak out when they become teenagers, or at least that's what we did, so. But vetting friends, no sleepovers. But on the flip side, and I'm sure many of you experience this, you have to develop trust in your children. You have to loosen the reins. You do have to let them go and visit and make friends and learn. Otherwise, you're sheltering them from reality, and then they'll end up going bananas when they get out. I think every one of us has a friend or family member that was a little too overprotected, and once they hit the real world, they had to try everything. They had to meet everybody. And in order to kind of prevent that from going over the edge, we really kind of temper our trust with them by loosening the reins. Now we do weigh that against their maturity level and their age and all of those things, but in reality, it's not as bad as I'm making it sound. I'm trying to cram 14 years of knowledge into 40 minutes, so please bear with me. Don't get overwhelmed. Part of what we were talking about with my daughter in the have a nice life thing, a lot for us that is difficult is working through the bad habits that our children develop. Our children are a reflection of us, how hard we work for our children, but occasionally your children can veer outside of what your intention is. So for us personally, the hardest ones that we've worked with is dishonesty, right? When you catch a child in a lie, it is like, oh, you just want to you want to kick them in the bottom or something. But you can't. You have to work with your spouse and figure out a way to work through those issues. Disrespectful talk or actions. So this was a no, right? My daughter, have a nice life, Mom. She's becoming a teenager, right? She has all these hormones. We have no idea if she's actually mean, but we like to believe that it's just the chemicals talking, right? Because she's actually very nice. She's sweet. She was like our sweetest kid, and then she told us have a nice life. It was literally like. So with that, the heart that is literally part of the heart. Probably the hardest things is as they get older, breaking them out of those bad habits, trying to develop good habits, but always keeping our eyes on the prize. Here we are. Like I said, we're 14 years into marriage. I don't know what time. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay. Okay. We're always keeping our eyes on the prize. We trust God's plan, right? Here God went and He trusted me with my wife and with 5 other souls, right? Well, actually 7. So we'll share with you guys. We actually had 2 miscarriages. So we have 2 children in heaven already. So we actually have spiritual allies with our blood and soul in heaven. But we have 5 here on earth that we're desperately trying to bring with us to heaven. Trusting God's plan. So how do we trust God's plan better in our life, right? Especially in regards to our children. It goes hand in hand with those things we talked about, right? Vetting their friends and leading them to be good people. But it goes hand in hand with loosening the reins, right? I can't be with my children 24 hours a day. I'm not going to go see the movies they're going to go see at the movie theater with their friends on a Saturday. It's not going to happen. I'm really not going to go, to the girl parties or whatever, what these things that you have to let them go. You have to let them experience. I do trust that God will watch over them. I do have to trust that He'll take the anxiety or the worry away outside of what I can handle and take it on His shoulders. At the end of the day, we're going to raise 5 children. Those 5 children, by the grace of God, will grow into adulthood, be good people, and God will handle, we'll raise them the best we can, but the culpability will fall off our shoulders. Once they become adults, once they are entering into these areas, we have to trust that God has their back. And He does. He will. He will help lead them. God's plan for us, right, might not be the same as our plan. It started with our openness to life, right? We got married. We decided to have children. We were open to life. really, I don't think we intentionally, was never like, oh, I'm going to have this many children or this and that. We just, God, whatever you're going to help us with and bless us with. But we accepted the responsibilities he gave us, right? We accepted the children he gave us. We accepted the task of leading a house, of providing for my children. Accepting the responsibilities given to you. And you'll see it in your own lives, starting with, living on your own in school, getting through your classes, working hard to get your degree. Those responsibilities that you guys take on, they will test your mettle. They will build your character. They will help create good people. And as a reflection of our marriage with our children, it's the same thing. All those days that we change diapers, we suffer and we get up with, vomit all over a bedroom, at 3 a.m. when we were already tired. You went to bed at midnight. All of those things, accepting those responsibilities and carrying us through, will make us will help us fulfill God's plan. At the end of the day, we want to die to ourselves, right, as a reflection of Christ's love. You'll see the steps. The first step, if you do decide to get married, is dying to yourself or your spouse. Learning that your spouse's wants and desires should be placed at an equal level of your own. Most of us that get married realize how much better our spouse is, well, at least this way, how much better our spouse is than us, so we work harder to try and sacrifice more. When you get blessed and you have a wife like mine, and this is usually in a good Catholic marriage, married in the faith, both spouses try their hardest to serve and to grow in faith together and lead the others. The second big step is dying to ourselves with our children. We realize that the importance of our time spent with our children is more important than me going golfing every Friday. It's more important than Robin going to the bar every night. No, but in all seriousness, our time spent with our family is going to directly correlate to them being good children. It's going to directly correlate to helping to lead them to the truth. We have to give up those wants and desires that we have. Now we actually have to give them up. They're not equal. We actually have to give them up for that time that God blesses us with those children. Now it is temporary. Someday, God willing, we live long enough, we'll be able to travel. We might have an extra $1 because all the children are out of our house. But we will never lose sight or take our eyes off the prize. My salvation is not here. I will not live for this planet. I just won't. We won't. Heaven is the key. If we fulfill God's plan, we are directly mirroring Christ's example of self-giving. When I die, he's not going to ask me, can you write a check? What kind of car did you drive? How big was your house? He's not going to ask me how many jobs I created. He's not. He is going to ask me one question, though. He's going to ask me, who did you bring with you? Who did you lead to me? And that would be the fulfillment of my vocation. To bring others with me, carry them through, and that's the goal. So I don't have much more for you guys tonight. I'm willing to answer any questions. I know it's kind of like far off in your guys' future, I think, but you are of the discerning age. I'm sure many of you will turn to marriage sooner than you expect. But we're happy to answer any questions and visit with you guys for the rest of the night. So, thank you. So we were 25 when we got married. We had kids like immediately. So we actually, like I said, we had lost our first one. So our first one made it to heaven. He got out of the way for his sister, and then I was 26 and she was 25, and then we had all 4 and 5 years. So the first two are 13 months apart. The second two are 11 months and 21 days. They are Irish twins. So for 9 days, they are the same age, which Benny definitely reminds Emily for those 9 days.
You mentioned a few things that could be used for family prayers, daily prayers. What do you guys do? And also, do you have any traditions that you've started?
So that's kind of a really cool question. So traditions that we started, we always say nightly prayers before our kids go to bed. We're never afraid to ask our friends to join us, or families, or if we have visitors. The people are usually really gracious, right? Most of our friends. We don't ask our neighbors that are the Jewish neighbors. They're a little touch and go when we ask them to say the Catholic prayers with us. But no, we say nightly prayers. We say daily prayers, or morning prayers. Excuse me. We say morning prayers when we get up. A lot of times we'll say prayers even when we're like in the car. If we forget we're in the car on the way to school, we'll say prayers with the kids. She started listening. There's a podcast. What's the name of the podcast?
It's Catholic Sprouts. It's like for.
It's super cute. The kids love it. The lady who does the podcast, it's amazing. She captures the attention of the kids. So we use that podcast in the morning. And then even at night, right? If we go out somewhere and we're out there super late, like it's 10 o'clock at night, I know that's not super late to you guys, but to my children and to us after all these years. But when it's like 10 o'clock, we get in the car, we pile in, we're going to come home. We'll always say prayers before they all fall asleep in the car, right? So we'll say prayers with them. We definitely enjoy invocation to the saints. So all of our children, every night when we say prayers, we end our prayers praying through the saints, asking them to pray for us. We make it a habit of the children learning about saints so that they can bring new saints to our invocation. We definitely, in our entire married life, we've never missed a Sunday Mass. We've never missed a Holy Day of Obligation outside of, actually no, that's not true. She was sick once. She had diverticulitis and inflamed intestine. And so being that she was in the hospital and all of that, she missed that Mass. I didn't miss the Mass.
I've been in the hospital like after having kids.
Oh yeah.
So I've missed a few Masses.
But it's obviously critically important to us, right? It's a celebration of the Eucharist. So for us, Mass. But as far as family tradition, so we were talking about this actually in our marriage prep. Taking stuff from my family, that we like, and incorporating it, and then taking stuff from her family and incorporating, but also remembering that it's ours, right? Like now making it ours. So I don't know. Do you mean just in our prayer life, or do you mean like in general?
Like holiday traditions or something that just as a family gives some kind of routine or seasonal quality.
Oh, so I cook Thanksgiving dinner. I do it. I cook the whole thing. I like to cook, so I cook. If we have people coming over, and it's, I guess it's like my love language, right? Is what she calls it. I love to cook for people. So if you guys want a good meal, definitely, be our friends. I'm okay. I dabble a little bit. But we're started teaching the kids how to cook, the older ones, right? But yeah, I do Thanksgiving, and I don't know. I really have to think about it. It's one of those things you don't reflect on and don't think about it. Then we'll get home and we'll be like, man, I forgot to tell them about this and this. Yeah.
Was it hard or not finding like other Catholic families to sort of fellowship with and like kind of build these lifelong friendships?
It's been actually a little bit easier now that the kids are older and they're in school and they make friends and you start making friends with the parents.
Yeah.
We've been really blessed too. This parish, Damien, whose brother's name is Mario, Damien and Marissa, we were introduced through Father just because of this, to the opportunity to serve the parish. And we're friends. We've spent like 4 of the last 6 holidays together. You know,
I have 4 kids.
he has 4 kids. He does. He has 4, and they're all similar in age range to ours.
Well,
Well, you have baby Mia. Mia's 1, but you know, Annie's 3. It's not, you know, they're similar. But it's, yeah, the parent, or our faith has really been I would say the one key.
And you'd be surprised, once you start taking kids with you to Mass, who approaches you and talks to you about their kids and, you know, hey, let's get together for coffee or something.
Yeah, have you run into like difficulty maybe like bringing a larger family to Mass or like maybe other social settings?
I don't so much because I don't care. I love all of you, but at the end of the day, I just gotta get my kids to heaven. And I love my wife. I already have a wife who loves me, so you know, dirty looks from people in Mass, it's like, I'm praying for you too. You know, and so it's just one of those things, you know, the difficulties are more corporal, right? Like getting everybody dressed, and I'm the worst about, like on Sunday, I'm yelling at them, and it's like, we're coming to 11 o'clock Mass here, and it's 10:10. Where you gotta be in the car? We live 7 minutes away. But we barely get out the door on time, but we do. We definitely get out the door.
If you don't start yelling early with that many people.
And you know, I'm not sexist in any way, but I got 3 daughters that are younger and her. I mean, guys, my son and me are sitting in the car. But yeah, as far as that, we like to we'll go out to restaurants, we'll go and eat. I think there's underneath the surface of all of the doom and gloom I talk about in the world, there are good families, there are good people. People love children inherently. It's in our nature to love children. And so you'd be surprised. We went to El Torito, I think, on Mother's Day at like 8 o'clock at night, and there were kids everywhere. At 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday, you know. And so people are really, you know, they respond pretty well, you know. So yeah, I don't know if I'm the right person to ask, you know. But if I can help, you know, transfer some of that, I'm happy to. Anybody else? Yeah.
Have you ever been publicly challenged for your beliefs in public? And if not, how would you deal with someone actively challenging you for your beliefs as a Catholic?
I have not been challenged in public, but I'm not afraid. We say grace, we sit down with the family, and we say grace wherever we go. We bless our meal before we eat, doesn't matter where we are. Again, I'm kind of, you know, in the same boat. I do care in that sense, but I'm not afraid. You know, I had this friend in college that was a Catholic, and he had some activities in his life that Catholicism doesn't back. Some sinful choices, right? When asked about him, you know, I told him, I said, you know our faith, like, you know it just like I do. You know, these passions, these things that you act upon are your own decision. You know, we all have to practice willpower. And it was hard. I lost a friend over it. He stopped hanging out with us, and actually, I don't think he practiced his faith. He found a church that would accept his decisions. So I don't force my belief on anybody. I'm not, and it doesn't mean we stop evangelizing. But I don't go into a room and say, you know what, you're doing this, you're not going to make it to heaven. It's not my place to say that. But if they ask me about it, if they ask me why I do what I do, why I'm not afraid or whatever, well, I'm not afraid to tell them. You know, if we know the truth, it's part of our obligation as Catholics to evangelize, to help in the apostolate, to share it with others. So it doesn't mean you have to share it with everybody, but you don't have to be afraid.
When did you know that this was the vocation that God was calling you to?
Well, for me, it was So actually, I don't know if you guys know of the Legionnaires of Christ, if you've ever heard of that religious order. So they had some scandal. Their founder was caught with like a family and some rough things, but they have very, very good priests and brothers in that order. That order had they had a retreat center in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, which is like our Beverly Hills in Michigan. And it was this big mansion, had a pool, had an indoor basketball court. It was donated to their order. I used to go to retreats there all growing up, from age, I think, 9 to about 13. And, you know, I always hoped, or I always kind of figured I'd be a father, right? Being the oldest child of all those kids. But I remember when I was 13, when I was a teenager, and, you know, just starting to really learn and get ready for confirmation, the priest there, Father Gomez, he took me aside. He said, "Ben, I'm going to tell you right now, you are not going to be a priest." And I said, "Well, how do you know, Father? I'm 13. Right? I said, "How do you know?" And he said, I just know. God's calling you to be a father, to be a husband and a father in the future. And God will, in His time, bring that person to you. So have faith. You know, one of the big things that we took from our first talk with you guys, have faith. God will bring you, if His intention is to call you to the vocation of marriage, have faith. He'll bring you the person. You don't need to look in the wrong places. God will provide. His timing is perfect, and He'll bring you the right person. But yeah, it was that. It was that when I was young, and then, you know, growing up, I just kind of knew. You know. How about you?
I don't know.
She's like 36 hours before we got married.
You know, we met and we became really, the two of us, really close before he even moved out here. And so I think I always knew once he moved out, I kind of knew at that point. We didn't get engaged right away, but
She's got her talent.
he's
It was totally. Anybody else? No? Oh.
Is there anything that you felt that you would have done differently just based on your experience being a parent and a family?
It's hard to say. I mean, you know, there's always little decisions that we make, right? As far as the great decisions in my life, I want to think that they led me here, so I don't want to change them, right? I had a weird road, like the weirdest road you guys can even imagine, to bring me to this place at this time, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for the world.
I want to know, in your opinion, what do you think it takes to be a good Catholic man, a good Catholic husband, and a good Catholic father?
So a good Catholic man, a good Catholic husband, and a good Catholic father. So a good Catholic man, let's start there. There's a lot of good Catholic men in this room. A good prayer life, you know, having trust that God will lead you. Working, not being afraid to work hard, right? Whether it's with your hands or whether it's with your mind. Not being afraid to speak up, just for justice, for actual justice, right? To help those in need. In self-control and willpower. I mean, those are the two critical components of trying to master one's passions and self, right? So as a man, if we can get those things under control, then accept God's call to vocation, and then be blessed with a wife. Being part of being a good husband is being accountable to your wife, being accountable to your children, being truthful, always being honest. Being honest with integrity is another key just in life in general. but especially in your household, teaching your children honesty. And then, the other things like being faithful and all those go without saying, right? But the strongest thing for us has been the ability to trust each other, to know that we have each other's back. Like I said, standing up to your kids for your spouse is a tough thing, especially at the beginning. Standing up to them, even if you know your spouse made a mistake, or even if you made a mistake, and sticking by it so that you don't lose the power over your kids. And then being a good father, I want to be a better father. I always want to be a better father. I always want to be a better husband, and I always want to be a better man. So I learned from him, and I learned from him, and I learned from you, and I learned from Abe, and I learned from Jair, and I learned from all of you guys. I'm always listening to try to be better at those things. I take whatever I can. So that's what I do.
Okay, so I know you're not exactly at the stage yet with one teenager, but where, when, and how do you think you're going to start losing the reins? Like, what are the first few things you think you're going to allow your children to do?
So we have.
Oh.
Yeah, we definitely have. We definitely have loosened the reins. So we start school dances, like, oh my gosh. Right? Like, school dances are like, but then you go and you're like, oh yeah, save room for the Holy Spirit, everybody. But then you go into the gym and they're all over there and they're all over there anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. We do school dances. We do let them go and hang out like a full day, and stuff like that. We do limit the sleepovers to only family, and it's just because again we've just seen trouble in other families and stuff like, and in our own, right? Growing up. So, but yeah, we encourage them to do sports, to be parts of activities. They come to the youth group here, and I know dropping them off at church, but it's still their time, right? We don't impede on that time.
Things like, computers and internet use too. Now they're of the age where a lot of their homework is on the computer, and whereas with the younger ones, I'm going on and I'm signing them on and making sure with my older ones, they now have their own passwords to the computer so that they can get on and do their homework. The older ones now have their own email addresses so they can communicate with their friends when they're at home.
Or their father when they're at school, and they email dad, hi dad. And I email them back, get back to work. But yeah, that one's pretty critical, right? Our family computer for the kids is chopped right in the middle of the room, right? There is supervision, and then all the parental locks, all the filters are on there. But you have to. If they're going to survive, we can only carry them so far. Right? They say, push them out of the nest. It's a real thing. But yeah, we've started. We'll get better. We saw it. One of my siblings had a really rough time. My parents sheltered her. She was like the first daughter after like 8 boys. Yeah. And so she got rough, right? Because all the boys had like free reign and terror. So they really sheltered her. And so when my sister came of age and moved out on her own, she just went. She just went wild. She's a great girl. I love her to death and everything. But she's, it's that experience of life that we wish that she would have had a little bit more freedom. We fought for it, but we lost that battle. We were newly married. What did we know? So, but yeah, those are the things. I thought I saw one more hand.
Just out of curiosity, do you have like a dating age restriction?
We haven't fully discussed this, but we talked about this years ago before it was ever a thing, and right.
Pray for me.
I know kids, and we can tell them they can't date, but I would much prefer my daughter bring her boyfriend home to meet me than sneak off and tell me she's going someplace else. I would rather she brought him home to meet me and then sent them out with a group of friends
I'd rather than bring him home to meet me and we can clean our guts on the back porch. I'm just joking. I'll be my gun. The truth is, you know what the truth is? The truth is that her experience of love is a reflection of my love for my wife. How I treat my wife, how I talk to my wife, how I respect my wife. So I have to trust that God will give her enough self-confidence to choose a mate that deserves her. Right? So, I mean, it's all, God's timing is perfect. I'm going to try not to freak out. But no promises. That was a good one.
Our 12-year-old, it really has no interest, but
Oh, she
our
thinks-
second daughter is going to be the one we're going to watch out for.
No, our third daughter. Well, so our third daughter, we call her our little Saint Therese. She's like our most difficult child as far as personality and pushing her parents, right? But we call her our little Saint Therese. She tells us all the time, I'm gonna be a nun. And I'm like, baby, whatever you want. Gotcha. Anyway, anybody else? Yeah, what's up?
Quick question, a little bit off topic actually.
No worries.
I've actually just got here a little bit late, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
What I did hear was pretty good stuff. But my question to you is, what advice do you give to somebody who is trying to bring their family back to Christ, whether they be parents, sons, daughters, or people outside the extended family, so cousins, uncles, aunts?
So, I have a really, my closest brother in age, so the number 2, like the second child, he's probably my best friend, right? Grew up with him, shared a room with him. He had a difficult upbringing with my parents. He was the black sheep, right? So he is not practicing his faith. His oldest son is my godchild. So, as you can imagine, right, I have an obligation. I swore in front of God and family, right, you know, in the church that I'd help raise him Catholic. So my brother, it's a battle. I'll tell you what, I don't win the battle by condemning him. I'm very firm. I remind him every single time I talk to him that he needs to get back in the church, in a mass. I think with others, you kind of judge their personality, and it's really your example, right? It's your life, your example. You hope that they will see it, and you can drop those hints. Don't be afraid to speak up. You know, God doesn't want us to condone sin, because we can't condone sin, but we can help lead the sinner back to God. And so I just encourage the sacraments, encourage reconciliation, and I remind him of him asking me to be a godfather, him making me promise to help raise his kids Catholic. So it's those things to help remind them, to draw them back. But yeah, it's really hard because it's an individual basis, right? It's one person might take that and like get offended by it and cut you up, right? As a family member, the other one might hit him in the side of the head and they realize it and they come join us. So yeah, you just do the best you can, be a good example and pray. Offer your suffering up, sacrifice for them, prayers and fasting. All those things will help.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? No, it's good.
Not at that point yet, but
It's good.
how would you take on this if one of your sons or daughters, how do I ask this without being like, how do you feel like dating outside of Catholic?
Well, so the hope is always, it's easier, right? With a Catholic and a Catholic. It's easier, right? You have a foundation. She wasn't Catholic. Doesn't mean it's going to be successful if both are Catholics. I don't know. Does it mean if they're going to be successful if they're not a Catholic and a Catholic? Well, she found the faith. So, and we were dating before she was a Catholic.
It's a matter of explaining to them kind of the battle that they have up ahead. I mean, that's the reason why our engagement was so long, because we knew we wanted to get married, but, you know, we were on different pages, and so until we figured that out, we didn't feel in our, you know, relationship, we were ready to get married. So we kind of have that personal experience that we could talk to them about. I mean, you know.
We were that movie, 5-year engagement. Literally, 5 years. I mean, everything she said, like, we have to remind them that it's just more difficult. But we'll prepare them before they choose their mate, because, you know, God has his reasons for putting people in their lives. You know, I've seen many Catholic marriages fall apart, but I've seen many Catholics get married to non-Catholics, and they find the faith, and they're some of the most beautiful marriages, you know, we've seen. But does not take away from that it's way easier if both are Catholic. You'll have a stronger foundation. You'll have the best starting point you can ask for, and the most help. Remember, to get married in the church, in a sacramental marriage, to have sacramental grace from the sacrament of marriage, both parties have to be Catholic. In that sacramental grace, I'm telling you, it's why I'm alive here today, guys. Pretty sure with 4 kids and 5 years in Michigan, where it gets to be -10, -20, I wouldn't have survived. Anybody else? I mean, we're good. You can go all day. Whatever.
You have a lot of girls, so have you dealt with like modesty as a problem yet?
Modesty, I like it. So I don't know how many were there at the student retreat, and then at the student retreat not this past year, but last year, we gave a talk on family life, and I asked all the young ladies to work with modesty, right? The God blessed women with beauty. He blessed men with attraction to beauty. There's a reason we chase them, right? There's a reason. And so we encourage, you know, men struggle with their passions, usually a lot more than women in general. That's just nature. And so we definitely, I yell at my children all the time, those shorts are going in the trash. Leggings are not pants, right? These things that can help lead others to impure thoughts, we just, you know, we help, we ask that they help us, you know, by being modest. So it's definitely a stickler in my house. So, nobody's perfect, you know, but yeah, we strive for modesty, for sure.
Have you had any challenges with Catholic schooling? Just because I've heard a lot of things, some good, some bad.
Mm-hmm.
You've said it's been good, but have there also been challenges with them?
Yeah, the biggest challenges are like, I wanted to say funding and whatever, but it was really like all the different parents and their different personalities and who wants to impact this on the board and this and that.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of infighting, and I didn't realize it. I wish I did. Had I known earlier, I would have kind of jumped in and helped hopefully try to you know, settle it. But the challenge is, you know, the funding is low, you know, unless you're at like 2 or 3 of the big super ones in the diocese, depending on, you know, which diocese you're in. There's usually like 2 or 3 super schools, right? They have the biggest parishes, they have the best funding, they have all the kids. So for us, we're in a very small Catholic school, St. Francis, downtown Riverside. I'm pretty sure most all you guys know who that is. And we lost a lot of enrollment, so it's always fundraising. It's always really trying to bring more kids in. So my kids, we're really blessed. Our kids do pretty well. They're all pretty smart, but I love the smaller classes. I love the advantage of more individual attention, you know. But yeah, the challenges end up being, you know, those types of things. But there's just no, it's hard to beat. Our kids go to mass every Wednesday. They get to go to confession every week if they want. They're learning the faith. They have it outside of their own family, right? It's for anybody that can do it, And they work with people too. Like that's a big thing, right? Everybody thinks it's $1 bajillion, but they will work with people and families in need to help keep their kids in there. We were really blessed. We were able to donate a ton of work and help us to pay our tuition. I'm an electrical contractor. We were able to do all sorts of work to fix up the school and help that way. Yeah. But that's the challenge. I think the other challenge is tuition. That's a big challenge. Okay, so next time, I will teach you all how to cook something. I'll even let you pick. You could put like a chart, and we'll take whatever the highest votes are. Sushi, oh man. Like the one thing, but you know what? We can do it. We can figure it out.